In 1993, nearly every American family room had a television the size of a refrigerator, and it needed its own piece of furniture just to stand up. A year later, roughly 1 in 3 kitchens had traded the country goose for a sunflower, and nobody stopped to ask why. By the late 1990s, walking into a suburban living room without a halogen lamp, an inflatable chair, or at least one animal print somewhere was starting to feel unusual. This was the 1990s, a decade that inherited the excess of the 80s and decided to make it beige. Some of these trends were everywhere. A few were genuinely bizarre, and almost none of us thought twice about any of it at the time. By the mid-1990s, the television had stopped being an appliance and started being a piece of furniture. Rear projection sets came in wood-grain cabinets standing 4 feet tall and nearly as wide, promising a screen bigger than anything a normal tube could manage. The pitch was simple, a movie theater in your living room. The reality weighed close to 200 pounds, ran hot enough to warm the whole room, and dimmed to almost nothing if you sat anywhere but dead center. Families didn't rearrange the living room around the TV, they built the room around it, and once it was in place, it never moved again until the day the picture tube finally gave out. Somewhere around 1992, a wave of terracotta, turquoise and dusty rose rolled east out of the desert and into living rooms that had never been within 1,000 miles of one. Cactus stencils climbed kitchen walls, howling coyote figurines sat on mantels next to sun-bleached cow skulls, woven rugs in rust and sage-covered floors from Seattle to Cincinnati. The look was sold as warm, earthy, authentic. In practice, it meant a family in suburban Ohio owned a ceramic coyote howling at a moon it had never seen, in a climate that had never grown a cactus. By the early 2000s, most of it went straight to the donation pile, coyote included. The goose retired sometime around 1991, and the sunflower took its job. Wallpaper borders, canister sets, dish towels, curtains, even the welcome mat, all sunflowers all at once. The flower was cheerful, easy to match, and sold in every home store in the country, which is exactly how it ended up on every surface in the kitchen within about 2 years. Refrigerator magnets, oven mitts, the little ceramic spoon rests by the stove. By the time the decade ended, the sunflower had done exactly what the goose did before it, worn out its welcome one dish towel at a time. Sometime in the early 90s, a beige tower, a bulky monitor, and a dot matrix printer claimed a permanent spot on a desk built into the kitchen wall or the upstairs hallway. This was the family computer, and everyone shared it. The pitch was homework help and the future arriving early. The reality was a modem that screeched for 30 seconds before connecting, a phone line that couldn't be used while anyone was online, and a stack of free AOL CDs nobody knew what to do with. Getting kicked offline because someone picked up the kitchen phone was a universal 1990s injury. Nearly every dorm room, rec room, and starter apartment in America owned the same lamp. A slim metal pole topped with a bowl that threw soft light up onto the ceiling. Halogen torchiere lamps sold for around $20 and made any room look instantly updated. What most owners never checked was the bulb itself, which could run over 1,000 degrees at the surface. Curtains, dust, and paper drifted close often enough that the lamp was linked to thousands of house fires before manufacturers finally added wire safety cages. The lamp that lit up the whole room came with a warning label most people read for the first time after the fire department already had. Inflatable chairs and love seats showed up in rec rooms and dorm rooms as the cheap, colorful alternative to real furniture. Clear vinyl, tinted vinyl, some even glittered. The appeal was obvious: $20, no assembly, looked fun in a catalog. The reality arrived a few weeks later as a slow hiss nobody could locate. A chair that seated a teenager on Friday was a deflated puddle of plastic by Sunday, and sitting on it in July meant peeling bare skin off the vinyl afterward. Most of them ended up patched with duct tape long before they ended up in the trash. Home improvement shows convinced an entire decade that plain painted walls were unfinished. The fix was faux finishing, sponging, rag rolling, color washing, a technique meant to mimic aged Tuscan plaster using a natural sea sponge and 2 coordinating paint colors. Done well, it looked custom. Done by an ambitious homeowner on a Saturday afternoon, it usually looked like a wall that had been lightly attacked with a paintbrush. The technique required almost no skill to attempt and a fair amount to get right, which is why so many dining rooms ended up patchy, streaky, and never quite finished. Redoing it meant stripping the wall back to plain paint, the very thing the project was trying to avoid in the first place. If your house had any of these, drop it in the comments and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. By 1996, small stuffed animals with a heart-shaped tag were treated less like toys and more like an investment portfolio. Families bought glass curio cabinets just to display them, tags protected in plastic sleeves, some pieces insured, price guides bought at the checkout line to track resale value. The reality landed a few years later. The market collapsed, resale prices dropped to a fraction of retail, and the cabinets that once held a rotating collection quietly became storage. Most of that collection is still in a box in someone's attic, tags intact, waiting on a market that never came back. The papasan chair, a round woven rattan bowl on a matching stand with an oversized cushion, became the unofficial furniture of every dorm room and rec room in the country. It was cheap, it looked a little exotic, and it fit in a corner nothing else could fill. What the showroom didn't mention was that the cushion never stayed centered. The frame creaked under any real weight, and after about 10 minutes, the chair curved your spine in a direction it wasn't built to go. Everyone owned one. Almost nobody could explain why it was actually comfortable. Cordless phones with a pull-up antenna and a base station finally let people talk on the phone from anywhere in the house. And for the first time, a small screen on that base showed who was calling before you picked up. It felt like the future. The range told a different story. Walk past the kitchen doorway and the call dissolved into static. Step into the backyard and it cut out completely. Every 1990s household had a designated spot, usually by a specific window, where the reception actually held, and everyone learned to stand there without being told. The awkward gap between the top of the kitchen cabinets and the ceiling became its own decorating category. Homeowners filled it with silk ivy, wicker baskets, decorative pitchers, and empty wine bottles arranged just so. The idea was to make the kitchen feel finished, layered, collected over time. In practice, that gap became the one place in the house nobody ever cleaned. The ivy faded from green to a dusty grey-green, the baskets collected a visible film, and the wine bottles sat undisturbed for years. Most homeowners only found out how bad it had gotten the day they finally dragged a ladder over to take it all down. Infomercials sold an entire decade on the idea that fitness could happen at home, and treadmills, Nordic tracks and Bowflex machines rolled into bedrooms and basements across the country on that promise. The first 2 weeks were serious, early mornings, real effort, real results. By week 3, the equipment had migrated to a corner, and by month 2, it had a permanent second job. It became the most expensive clothes rack in the house, holding jeans, sweaters, and a jacket nobody could be bothered to put away, exactly where a person was supposed to be exercising. Before satellite television shrank down to a dish the size of a pizza pan, it arrived in American backyards as a 6 to 10 foot dish mounted on a pole, aimed at the sky like a piece of radar equipment. It promised hundreds of channels no cable package could match. And for a few years, it was a genuine status symbol. The catch was the dish had to be manually repointed depending on what you wanted to watch. A light rainstorm could knock the signal out completely, and the thing took up a meaningful chunk of the yard. When DirecTV and Dish Network arrived with dishes you could bolt to a windowsill, the giant backyard dish came down almost overnight. Tell me in the comments which one of these your house had. I read everyone. Mauve didn't disappear so much as it changed clothes. By the early 90s, the color scheme moving through American homes was country blue, hunter green and burgundy, usually all three in the same room, paired with pine furniture and a stenciled border where the wallpaper used to be. It was marketed as warmer, cozier, more grown-up than the pastels that came before it. It followed the exact same path anyway. By the early 2000s, hunter green and burgundy were exactly as dated as the color they'd replaced and just as slow to get painted over. That was the 1990s. The goose became a sunflower. The entertainment center grew a giant curved screen and moved to the center of the room. A coyote howled at a desert moon in states that had never seen a desert. A lamp lit up the whole living room and occasionally the curtains along with it. None of it makes much sense now. All of it made complete sense then. Maybe that's what every decade does. Commit fully to a look right up until the moment it becomes the thing the next decade makes fun of. If anything here brought back a memory, leave it in the comments. And if there's a trend I left out, tell me. There's a whole decade we haven't finished unpacking yet. Subscribe so the next one finds you when it comes out.